Christ.
You know what that sound is, Connor?
Beer?
That's the sound of me cracking open a beer, because we're having a fun one this week, Connor.
Yes, we are. You told me before you came over here, I'm going to get a beer because I'm going to have a fun time.
I'm very excited about this. This is a good time. This is the first time we can just kick back and have fun on the show. And I think that's important.
Yeah. I don't know if we're actually going to have fun because I feel like you're going to be silently fuming.
I just remembered another game. God damn it.
Seriously?
Yes.
Huh. I didn't.
This shakes up many things, Connor.
Damn it, Tavin. Well, go ahead and modify your list.
It shakes up many things.
Because you see, Tavin?
It shakes up many things.
Okay, I'm going to tell you right now.
Yeah.
The only reason Ghost of Tsushima isn't on this list...
Oh my God. Spoilers, Connor!
It's because I haven't played it.
You haven't finished it?
Finished it, yeah. If I finished it, it would be going on this list definitely over this other game.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh my God! Dude.
Yeah.
We found an extinct fish, and the guy's about to kill it.
Oh my.
Yeah.
That's not photoshopped at all.
No.
Okay. Well, what's poppin', players? Welcome to the Two Penny Gamescast, episode 8. I am your host, Tavin Bothell, here with my good friend and co-host, Connor Elliott. Connor, say hi to the people.
Hi, guys.
How you doing this week, Connor?
Almost as good as the last time we recorded this episode.
That's insane.
Yeah.
It's almost as if this is only moments after we recorded the last episode.
And I've had a cinnamon vanilla shake in my belly.
We have had some milkshakes since then. What was I saying? Oh,
you were saying
so basically, at the normal time of recording for this week, I'm out of town. So we did not have time to record the podcast about the newest, latest, and greatest news that we would normally cover. So this week, instead, we're going to have a fun little episode about top 10 PS4 games.
Yes. Emphasis on the PS4 games. Because to be honest, when we were planning this out, I thought Tavin, no, completely my fault, said the top 10 games of all time.
No.
And I had a painstaking list created, fumed over it for a while, and then I got revealed like an hour ago that it's just for PS4 games. So I made my list.
But don't worry, listeners. We're going to have our top 10 best games all time conversation one day.
Yes.
But not today.
No.
So you can catch us every week, Monday, 8 a.m. On YouTube and SoundCloud. I don't know if I've figured it out. Maybe I have for putting it on other platforms.
You've taken so long to do it. Guess it's time for me to work my magic as well. The big boy stepping into the game.
So instead, this week we're just having a little evergreen fun. Just want to jump into it, Connor? We should start with how we made our lists.
Yes, 2 different lists technically because
in terms of style.
Yes.
So I'll start. I made my list based off of if you're like a new PS4 owner. Here are the 10 games that you should absolutely go out and get right now.
Mm-hmm.
We also made sure to include that no remasters are on this list, purely original games. Remakes are okay. So, for example, Resident Evil 2 remake could potentially be on either of our lists.
Mm-hmm.
But The Last of Us remaster is not on our lists. Because that's a PS3 game, you should go play it on the PS3. Well, no, you should play it the remaster first. But
yes,
it doesn't. We're not saying Last of Us is not one of the crazy games you should go get right now if you're a new PS4 owner. But these are the ones that cemented PS4 as a great console to have.
I feel like it should be mentioned that if we were allowed to put remastered on this list, it would be very high up.
Oh yeah.
Yes, but it's not. So
easy. It's easy.
Yes.
Should also say third-party games or multi-platform games rather are allowed on the list. However, if they are better known for being on another console, for example, Rise of the Tomb Raider was exclusive to Xbox for a year. We went ahead and nixed any games that are kind of like that are known for being on PC or known for being on Xbox. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. Do we need to add anything else? Do we need to tell the people how we formed these? You did yours differently.
The way that I did my list is because rather than just give a list of what I would give to someone else who's a new PS4 owner and which games they should get in succession, I chose games that are PS4 centered and the ones that I liked the most. So it's a very personal list for me. So even if I can say that you probably overall enjoy a specific game more than another one, it's going to come down to which one I liked more. So that's how I focused my list. So it's a little bit of it's two different styles to how we're doing things, but I can expect a pretty good amount of crossover because there's only so many PS4 exclusives.
Yeah.
And PS4 games that we could put on this list.
Yeah.
So,
And I think there's some landmark titles this generation that, of course, are going to be on the list.
Yeah.
We don't know what each other's lists are.
No.
Because we wanted to have a little bit of fun. And also, we should go ahead and put in at the end of this. So we're gonna go back and forth. So I'm gonna start with my number 10. We're gonna talk about it, and then Connor's gonna give his number 10. We're gonna talk about it, and then we're gonna go up from there. And then at the end, we're gonna combine our lists and numerically assign each number or each spot on the list a number. So, for example, my number 1 pick has 10 points. My number 10 pick has 1 point. And then we're numerically going to add our lists together and give you a definitive 2-penny Gamescast. Here's our top 10 PS4 games that you got to go get.
Yes.
That's about it.
So let's just jump into it then.
Did that make sense the way I explained it?
I perfectly understood it. Of course, I helped make it, so
yeah,
I would know.
You're already on the in-craft. But,
yes.
We're just going to start, and you'll follow along as we go. So my number 10 pick, Connor, is a little-known game. Little kind of indie game that made some crazy waves when it came out. Mm-hmm. Crazy waves. Huge waves. My number 10 pick is Rocket League.
Rocket League.
I think if you're a PlayStation owner and you don't have Rocket League, you're missing out. Rocket League is a ton of fun. It's soccer, but with rocket cars.
Mm-hmm. It was very fun when I played it.
Oh, it's crazy fun. Crazy physics. The cars jump around and fly anywhere. There's strategy involved. There's on-the-fly thinking. Just an absolute blast with friends. We must have put, when it came out, easily 100+ hours in of just either casually or competitively just going at it and just playing soccer with rocket cars. Mm-hmm. Rocket League is a fucking blast. High energy, craziness, just tons of fun, and then just you can constantly track your own skill progress. You get better as you keep playing and as you keep seeing how the ball physics move and stuff, and how you start performing hits in the air as your car leaves the ground, and you rocket it towards the ball because it's way up in the air, and then you use that to dunk on these motherfuckers. Fucking fantastic. Crazy customization with your cars. You can pretty much have it look any way you want. You could have your car have a hat. Your car could have a clown nose. Your car could be pink with blue racing stripes. I don't know why you would do that.
No. No one would.
Somebody
person.
might.
No sane person.
Somebody might. You could do like a little like wizard hat on the antenna of your car or something. Yes. It's a lot of fun. Just a lot of fun, quirkiness. Every time you make a goal, the ball explodes, and it's this big triumphant brrr, and you're like, yeah, I did that. Fucking love Rocket League. One of the best indie games to come out this generation.
I'm surprised this is on your list, actually. I know how you made it, so
yeah.
Personal favorite, it may not have been on the list if that's how you were doing it the same way I did it. But even so, I'm surprised you put this on the list.
I don't know if it would have made a top 10 personal favorites, but it might have been it might have been a thought. I might have thought about it.
Because you and our friend group played it a lot more than I did. I always liked the game a lot, but I never loved it as much as some other people did. But everything you said rings true. It's a really great game. Really well made game.
So fucking fun. So Connor, what is your number 10?
My number 10 pick, surprisingly, is the Resident Evil 2 remake.
No way!
The Resident Evil 2 remake, yeah. It's almost that. It's like when you said that we could have Resident Evil 2 on there, I put it in my number 10 spot.
You just had to throw it in real quick?
Yes, I had to. I really had to. I mean, I never played the original Resident Evil 2. In fact, the first experience I had with a Resident Evil game was Resident Evil 5. So, I know, for some people that's like sacrilege.
I think that was also my first experience.
It might have been, yeah. But you played a bunch of them after the fact, and you went all in on Resident Evil 2.
I've played every one except for the original 3.
Yeah.
And all the side games. If it doesn't have a number next to it, I don't pay it much mind.
Yeah. But this was an amazing remake. One one of the best that's ever been made, I think, in terms of remakes. I mean, they
up there.
Completely changed the game from the original. From what I've seen of the original Resident Evil 2.
There are ways in which the original is still better. In terms of like how they handle plot and choices you can make and how the two storylines in that game between Leon and Claire interact with each other in the original. The remake doesn't do a whole lot of that. The remake's a lot more simple in its narrative design. But yeah, I agree with you. Mechanically, atmosphere-wise, like the Raccoon City Police Department is horrifying.
It is, especially when you combine Mr. X in there. I know you weren't really scared of him all that much. I am terrified of enemies that just chase you and do not stop. And I got freaked out by Mr. X. It was definitely like one of the most memorable gaming experiences I've had. Just like boom, 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 boom. I hear him. He's out my door. I can't go out now. Well, and I would just get scared shitless.
My favorite moment experience. I've got so many favorite moments from that game, but one of my favorite moments in Remake is the moment they introduced the liquor. Horrifying.
You get scared of the liquors more than...
Oh, the liquors terrify me. Even to this day, I've played Resident Evil 2 a dozen times, the remake, and I love the game. I've speedrun the game. The liquors still, like, cut deep to the bone.
Because of how they look.
But my favorite moment is when it's introduced, and it's that hallway, the window's broken, rain's coming into the hall, it's dark.
Yeah. And like you said, atmosphere is amazing in this game.
You're just walking, and you see that tongue come down, pick up a body from the book. What I love is, I played that game before you did.
Yes.
And then I watched you play that game.
The entire game. Both playthroughs with Claire and Leon.
You and I reacted the exact same way to that moment, where we were like, fuck this, and we dove into the STARS office for safety. We were like, okay, great. And when you come back out, the liquor's in a different spot. And you and I both looked at the vent in the ceiling, expecting the liquor to drop out of that vent. But instead, he's right around the corner.
The worst part is I was so confident. I'm like, Tavin, I don't know how this scared you, because you had hyped it up, the introduction of the lictor.
Oh, he's horrifying.
And I was like, dude, he's in the vent. He's in the vent. I saw him. And then just like, and out of my peripheral, just see on the wall. I'm like, oh fuck. Scared shitless.
I would say another great memory, and one of my favorite video game memories I've ever had.
Yes, I love it too.
Is the introduction to Mr. X, specifically when I watched you play.
Now, keep in mind that, like I said, I knew Mr. X was coming. I knew he was in the game. I knew he was going to be a persistent enemy. And I told Tavin beforehand, that's the thing I'm most scared of. Zombies, whatever. Liquors, okay. But Mr. X, I was like, oh god, he's going to come. He's going to chase me.
You had told me before we even started, you were like, I'm not prepared for what Mr. X is going to be.
A certain type of fear comes in when an enemy like that appears, and it was always there throughout the entire game.
I don't have that fear at all. I mean, it just does nothing.
And I don't think with liquors. So it's just different plays. But what happened is that for all people that don't know, the way he's introduced is you turn on some water that douses a fire that's on a helicopter that's blocking your way. So you do that, and you go into the hall.
The helicopter had crashed.
Yes, the helicopter had crashed earlier. So once you do that, you're supposed to go there. And what Mr. X does is that he appears behind the helicopter, and with one hand just lifts it up and tosses it to the side. Yeah. And not in a cutscene, in-game
It's
moment.
in-game. Yeah. Like you turn the corner, and you watch him do it, and you're supposed to just turn away and run and circle around him. There's also other ways you can get around him. But what's great about that moment is you had just gotten your fucking ass eaten by some zombies.
Yeah, I dealt with the part very, very badly. Yeah, but I knew Mr. X was coming, but I didn't know when, because I never saw any images online before that. So I was like, okay, well, he's going to come eventually, and I'm scared, but it'll come.
Right.
So Tavin's ripping into my ass, saying, "How'd you get hit by all those zombies? They're so easy, so easy." And I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, okay, I lived. And I say, like, as I walk into the hallway and about to go around the corner,
you're turning the corner to see that helicopter moment happen.
And we're still talking about what just happened with the zombies. And the first words that come out of my mouth right before I turn around that corner is, "Well, at least I'm safe." And then we turn around the corner.
It's the most perfect movie moment. You could not recreate that.
No,
except you, sir, did recreate it.
I did.
In Resident Evil 3. I don't remember how you did it, but I know you did it.
See, what was it again?
I'm trying
to remember. I remember it was it with Nemesis?
No, It might have been Nemesis's intro. You might have done something very similar. But
Yeah.
Resident Evil 3 not nearly as scary as 2.
No, it's not scary at all.
No, it's a much more action game.
Yeah.
So
Nemesis-
Resident Evil 2 is a great pick.
Yes. That's my 10 pick.
That's number 10. So I'm going to jump to number 9. Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Only number 9.
Oh.
Well, go on. Give your reasons.
So, I love Final Fantasy VII Remake. It is unfortunately, it comes with a lot of baggage in my mind. You arguably cannot play that game without knowing the story of the original. You can, like I did, and have a good enough time, but the last 2 hours of that game falls apart and makes no sense, and like, even if you know the original game, you still have to like sit back and think about it and really piece it together.
Yes. Now,
in a bad way.
I should mention that, well, a bad way for you. I had fun with that part. But
Sure.
Final Fantasy VII is also available on PS4, so...
It's only available on PS4. It's exclusive for right now.
No,
Eventually it
the
will be in the
original
future.
Final Fantasy VII.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
available on PS4. It's a nice enough port. So
Yeah.
if you're going to get into that game, you need to play that
Well,
first.
there's a lot of
Recommend
barriers
it.
for the original Final Fantasy VII for modern gamers, though.
Yeah, there is, but at least the PS4 version allows you to move through the area fast, not have random encounters.
Yeah.
Easy.
To infinite health and so forth. You can go and play that game and get the story. It might be better just to like watch a YouTube recap or something.
Yeah.
Though. But don't get misconstrued. Everyone should absolutely play Final Fantasy VII. It's a great game. And Remake is also a great game. Phenomenal game, actually. The combat works so good. I don't know if I've ever played a game where its combat balances its superpowers and its main, like little small attacks that you do to fill in the time between your super abilities. I don't know if I've played a game that balances those two things as well, except for maybe Control. Final Fantasy VII Remake does that perfectly. The character models and the animations are great. I think those characters still hold true. I think its story has enough mystery and intrigue to keep you going until the end. But then the end falls apart and makes no sense, especially for new players. For returning players, it makes more sense, but you got to think about it. Some of the environments aren't as pretty as the character models. For some reason, the character models look phenomenal, and then the environments can be a little lackluster in a couple of areas.
Funny enough, that's kind of the opposite for the original one. The very polygon characters that don't have much detail to them, and then the backgrounds are great.
I don't know.
You never liked them?
I agree. Those PNG backgrounds, I don't know.
See, they always did it for me. I loved them.
Maybe it's because of the way that the characters move in the original game. It's hard to see what's an actual path and what isn't. But that's beside the point. But Final Fantasy VII Remake's combat is on another level. That game is so fun to level up your characters and to bounce between them and to... all JRPGs should take note from here on out. Now, I don't think every JRPG needs this combat system. Your Personas, for example, can probably stay the same. Your Fire Emblems can stay the same. But any combat system that has like this like active time battle or even like some like turn-based combat should be taking notes and should learn what they can apply from Final Fantasy VII Remake to their game, because this game is so fun to play. Like, just an absolute blast. And then you can get lost for hours in the weeds of just, like, selecting your materia and getting your little boosts and your damage buffs up and stuff. Like, you can, like, just really go real deep and customize and get your magic working the way you want it to. Like, it's fucking awesome. And on top of that, it's not boring to look at. Like, while you're waiting for your supercharges, like, your normal modes of attack is fucking fun.
Yeah. And the ability to switch in between characters that do the same exact thing
on
also
the fly,
helps
like,
it.
it's great. There's a pause, like, there's a way to pause combat, right? Or, slow it down or slow-mo or whatever. Yeah. It's all great. I can't sing the praises of Final Fantasy VII's combat enough. Its story... I think is pretty bare bones, and there are moments where you can feel the padding because it's only the first maybe 5 hours of the original game. stretched over 40, and you can feel it sometimes, especially with the side objectives where they're like lame. Like the side objectives are lame. But I think the core story there has enough intrigue to keep you going to the end, and then whether or not they pay off, we'll have to see with Remake Part 2 and 3 and however many more they're going to make.
Yeah.
You have any more thoughts on?
No. Well, I do, but I'll hold off.
Okay.
There's no reason to.
Well, I don't know if we should double dip as much, because I assume it's going to be on your list probably somewhere high based on what you're eating.
No.
All right, Connor. Well, go ahead and give me your number 9 then.
Now, this number 9 spot, I feel like it's going to be your pick for Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to be you're going to treat it kind of the same as my number 9 spot, which is Uncharted 4.
Oh, it did make your list.
Oh, yeah, of course it made you thought I wasn't going to make my list?
You lied to me, you liar.
Well, of course I lied to you, but
also, way too low.
No,
way too low.
No, because you see, here's the thing. Uncharted 4 is boring.
Whoa.
It is boring at a lot of points in the game. See, I know. See, I told you you were going to be like, eh. Now,
it's got moments that are less fun to replay than others.
It is very boring.
But I'm not,
Yeah, very, very boring. Now, one of the things that I had said a while ago about The Last of Us 2 is that it can get kind of sluggish. This is on a different level.
You think?
Yes. But the reason why it's on my list in the first place, and it's above something like Resident Evil 2, which is just all gameplay pretty much, the story was a perfect round out to Uncharted. You know, that I played all the other ones in the definitive collection, the what did they call it? The Nathan Drake collection, and I had a blast playing them all. Like they were extremely fun games.
Yeah.
And this one really amazed it in every other way, and like it was the perfect send off to a franchise. While the gameplay was the game was overall I found boring because there were so many lulls in the game where there was dialogue, and even though it was interesting,
lots of climbing.
That's the problem. It's just climb, walk, and boring puzzles. The puzzles didn't do.
Oh, really? Those puzzles are the best in the franchise, in my opinion.
Well, see, that was kind of always a downside to the Uncharted games.
Oh, the puzzles are typically pretty whack. I think in 4 they're good.
But even so, the gameplay when it was in full swing was amazing. It was fluid. It controlled better than any of the other Uncharted's, and it was just the complete package for what an Uncharted game needed with its combat. Plus, the voice acting was top notch, as it always was.
Top tier.
You know, all of the characters were great. I didn't expect Nathan Drake's brother to come to the play, but he was a great character as well. Came out of nowhere and
feels a little thrown in there.
He was
kind
of thrown in there, but he works in there. You know, because they never hinted at him before any of this.
Yeah.
But honestly, we didn't really need to, because he was kind of just a part of Nathan Drake's life that he had left behind.
Sure.
And it was just him and his brother.
Oof.
In their own separate story. Now, I also should mention that the villain was also really good too, but not the best.
It might be the best in the franchise, that villain. Right?
You know what? I'm going to say Uncharted 2's villain's my favorite.
Go back and replay. He's a little generic.
He's very generic, but he's kind of fun, though. He's kind of movie villain
generic
fun.
Things.
I do, but Uncharted 2 is like action movie type video game.
You're right.
And he works for that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But, you know, all the other Uncharted games aside, it's a game that I would recommend to pretty much anyone, because you can play the first 3 games easily enough on PS4, and then you can finish it out with Uncharted 4.
Yeah. Uncharted 4 is also on my list. It's much higher.
Oh, I knew it was. Anyway, I'm guessing top 3. Just saying.
We'll have to see.
Not going to look at your reaction.
We'll have to see.
Not going to look at your reaction.
We'll have to see. Yeah. So Uncharted 4, I'm going to second pretty much everything you say there. When it's on full blast, oh my god, it's on full blast.
Yes. Now, I stress that a lot too, because it kicks up.
The moments that are Well, it builds, but it builds throughout the whole game instead of building to each level like other Uncharted games did. So it starts very slow and it builds. I think the reason to me Uncharted 4 is so great is from the notes they took from The Last of Us in narrative storytelling. Uncharted 4 has the best story of all the Uncharted games, and it has, I think, one of the greatest stories in video games, period. Now, is it like the deepest story or the most like symbolic? No. It's still your like Pulp Fiction action movie things, but it's on the level of like an Indiana Jones Last Crusade,
which are those types of movies, but have so much more underneath it all.
Yeah,
that you
whereas
can't
the rest
discount
of the franchise probably lands somewhere more in that like Temple of Doom level of
very
storytelling.
memorable, very fun.
Yeah, very fun. You're having a good time.
Enjoyable characters that you
But it's
always
bubblegum.
love spending time
You know,
with.
you chew it and you spit it out and you're done with it. I think the level of just polish in Uncharted 4 is freaking crazy.
Now, I do got to stop you there.
Yeah.
Not discounting what you just said. Let's try not to double dip too much because let's be honest, it's going to be on. You just said it's going to be on.
Well, no,
your
yeah,
list.
but I'm not going to talk about it when we get to it.
Ah, good, okay.
And that the character work in that game is fantastic. Nolan North and Emily Rose as Nathan Drake and Elena Fisher are on another level. Like that is their like best work I've seen yet, and that's saying something because they're both super talented actors. They're fantastic in that game. The animations are phenomenal. Some of the best gaming has ever seen. Rivaled only by like Last of Us 2 in terms of animation. And yeah, I can't sing the praises of Uncharted 4 enough. I think you can play Uncharted 4 without playing the other 3 games. I think you're doing yourself a bit of a disservice.
You would be.
But it's still very playable, and I think most moments hit just as hard, with the exception of a couple near the end where you need the build from the other games. But for the most part, they work really. Oh, and some of the fan servicey moments in the beginning and in the end, you need the context for. But for the most part, I mean, it's just kind of hard to beat that game.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to jump to my number 8, Persona 5 Royal. Persona's fantastic. If you haven't played Persona, you should play Persona.
It is great franchise.
Persona 5 is a great place to jump in on.
Granted, any Persona 3, 4, or 5 is kind of just good to jump in
all
on.
three of those games, it's hard to miss. It's hard to miss. Royal is definitely a better definitive version of Persona 5 in terms of all the tweaks they do to gameplay, the extra little animations they add, the extra dungeon, what are they called? Palaces. The extra palace that they add. The extra characters are great additions on top of a cast that was already really, really good. And there is something just kind of, I don't want to say meditative, but there's something comforting about managing your schedule between, the school life and then the like supernatural secret life that you and all these other high school students lead.
Yeah.
And it's just fun to just get to know those characters and live this life and just spend a year in a different city and just be like, you know what? These are going to be my friends, and, by the end of this journey, I'm going to care about them like their family.
Minus the supernatural aspects of the game, that really is one of the places where the game really just shines, because you live in the city, you feel like you live there, you hang out with your friends. While I feel like you could have hung out with your friends more, especially when you compare it to something like Persona 4, which you tell me you
There's
do
not
that
a lot of
more.
trips.
Yeah, a lot.
Like in
trips
4, the cast goes on they go on camping trips and like trips to the spa and like there's like all these like different things. In 5, you go on like 1, maybe 2 trips.
Yeah,
it could have been some more of that. I've also got issues with the framing of its narrative. Personally, in comparison to 4, which is every dungeon is based off of the characters in your party, so you get to know your characters better. The dungeons in 5 are based off of your antagonists. So you jump into one, you learn why he's a bad guy, and then you get rid of him. And then you jump into the next one, you learn why he's a bad guy, and then you get rid of him and you never see him again. And you just kind of repeat that pattern 7, 8 times. Whereas in 4, it's you dive in, you see a character's inner thoughts, how they feel on the inside, their troubles, their conquests, their strife in life. And then when you exit that, you continue to build that arc with them. And that leads to a much more satisfying conclusion to me than what 5 was doing. However, the combat in 5 is polished to a sheen. They add elements to let returning players have more fun. But the joy of Persona, to me in general, is how easy it's sort of like a rock, paper, scissors type combat system. A lot like Pokemon, but it's a little more mature than that, and it's a little like there are multiple ways you can do things, and it's a little tougher, but it's not so obtuse to where new players feel lost in the systems. The way it balances its combat, I think, is fantastic.
I have a hard time disagreeing with anything you just said.
It's because I'm usually right.
Well, okay.
Usually I'm pretty
yeah,
spot on.
he had to literally go and just be like a dick about it.
I had to go ruin it, yeah. So what's your number 8, Connor?
So originally, one of the games I was going to put on my list was Ghost of Tsushima.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't beat it yet. I haven't
No.
actually gone back to it in a while, and you haven't either. We should probably do that.
Are there games on this list I haven't beat? No, I've beaten every game. Okay.
There's one game that I have not beaten.
On your list?
Yes.
Is this
my
it?
number 8 spot.
Number 8?
Part of the reason why it's at number 8 is because I haven't beat it yet. Played most of the game, like most of the general base game.
Okay.
Me not completing this game has been a source of pain and strife in my gaming life for a while now. And I have no reason to not go back and do it. I can easily do it.
If it's the game I'm thinking of,
No reason.
This is peak of your pile of shame.
Yes, peak. And that's The Witcher 3
Yep.
Wild Hunt. Yeah, I knew you saw that coming.
Yeah.
The thing is that now I have to mention I love The Witcher 3, but I don't love it as much as other people do.
Sure.
Obviously,
it's only number 8.
Yes, but I love the world of The Witcher. I never read the books. I didn't play 1. I didn't play 2, and I think
As someone who is currently reading the books, you don't need to read the
no,
books.
but even so, I was very unfamiliar with the world going into it, and it still did an amazingly good job of bringing me up to speed of like, okay, the Nilfgaardians, they're invading.
You think?
Yeah, I did. Now, granted, I did pay attention to Witcher 2 before that.
Okay.
Here or there. So I kind of knew a sense of what was going on. But even so, the world itself was one of the biggest draws of the game because I jumped into it and, I can imagine what was going on because the people live here. Monsters, they're a problem. I got to deal with them as a Witcher. And it's kind of hard to put it into words, to be honest, but it really just nestles you really well into that world.
Okay.
And that's helped along more by the fact that the story is really good. I don't know how you feel about the story because I really don't see you talk about it as much.
I think it's good, not great.
The characters are what make it.
The characters
are what make it. The combat, extremely fun. It's not as polished as other games that I played, which I think is a big reason why the combat wasn't an enticing enough reason for me to actually complete the game. And keep in mind, I have not really any good reason to why I haven't beaten The Witcher 3 at all. Like, the story wasn't getting bad. The characters didn't get worse.
It's a very large game.
It's a very large game. But
Takes a lot of time.
I did all the monster quests even. But I didn't do...
Yeah, see, I think that's where you fucked up.
Yeah, see? I think that's where I did too.
Yeah.
That was the other problem I had with it, because I finished the monster quests, all of them, and I thought to myself, that's it? I mean, I'm the Witcher. I should be hunting way more monsters than what I was doing.
Are you sure you got them all? Or you just got them all in that section?
I got the trophy. It said, complete every monster trophy, complete every monster hunt quest in the game. And I was like, oh, okay.
There's quite a few monster hunt quests.
Well, because I love them so much. I did them over and over and over
They're one of the best
again.
parts of the game.
Yeah. The music is amazing. It won
fantastic.
One Game of the Year. Not Game of the Year. Well, it did win Game of the Year. It did.
Game of the Year.
But it also won the award for the best music. And that was rightfully deserved as well.
2015? Yeah, I agree with that.
I know that because I still think another game should have won best soundtrack, but I'll get to that later.
2015 that should have won.
What?
What game is that?
Well, we'll get to that later.
Oh,
I'll bring it up. It's on the list. But at the end of the day, Witcher 3 is a great game. Anybody should play it, and with the new edition that's coming out with the next gen, there's no reason not to buy it.
No reason.
Because you'll probably need some games, possibly for the PS5 and the Xbox One S or whatever they're calling it now. Yeah. I don't even know. I don't even bother.
Series
X. Yeah, that kind of speaks to some
Jesus,
stuff.
Connor. Huh? We have a gaming podcast. You can't remember the name of the two consoles?
No, not that one, at least.
So I'm going to echo pretty much everything you said there. Witcher 3 is also on my list. It's higher. So
yeah.
I think the combat is good. I think it's a little punishing for new players, and I think it's not aging well. I think it still works pretty well, but it's not aging well. It's also a little simple in mostly just dodge, hit when you come across harder enemies. I think things like the potion system kind of fall flat.
They do.
Outside of a couple of key potions. The spells, you typically only use like 3 of the 6 or however many, 5 or 6, however many there are, and the others kind of fall to the wayside. I think the game is a skosh too big.
Really?
I think it's a little too much going on in that game. Just a little. Like, you should have probably cut back on some of those, like, more boring side quests, fetch quests. Like, you had good enough, strong side quests already that we would have been perfectly satisfied. I'm glad that those extra side quests are there. And for people who love, like, an everlasting gobstopper type game where they can get lost in an RPG world, The Witcher 3 is the best of the best. I think Witcher 3 is one of the greatest games ever made.
One element I didn't cover, which is stupid why I didn't cover it, but it is probably one of the best games made. Mm-hmm. But I can definitively say that it is definitely one of the best RPGs ever made.
It's in that conversation.
RPG elements.
I would say it's the best Western
phenomenal.
RPG, period.
Yes, I would agree with you as well. The customization of the equipment, the swords you can get, armor was very well done. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, you just talked about side quests, and they already have amazing ones in there. The side quests are so well done. It's a standard for, what the outcome of this quest is going to be and how is it going to affect the world and the characters in that quest.
And choices Geralt makes that. One thing you said about the world being so engrossing, I agree, and it is a very engrossing world. And the more you put in, the more you get out of it. I don't agree, however, in that the world is welcoming to new players. It's a very political world, the world of The Witcher. And it would be like being from a different planet and being thrown into American politics today. You'd be like, wait, what the fuck is going on? And that guy does what with who? Huh?
He burns witches, Tavin.
Sure. Yeah, but it gets... You can get kind of lost in the details a little bit.
I think I now that I am thinking about it a little bit more, my exposure with the series as a whole probably made that a lot easier.
Yeah.
I knew a lot of stuff going in.
Yeah, where if you just jump in kind of blind, you're going to be lost.
Yeah.
With the first time, I've played Witcher 3 twice. The first time through, I just golden pathed it and just got that main core story, which I think was a valuable way to play. It is not it's not the wrong way to play. There are some games where just golden pathing it is the wrong way to play a game. I don't think that for The Witcher 3. I think the best way to play is to do everything after you already have an understanding of the world. Mm-hmm. And if Witcher 3 is your introduction to that world, golden pathing it is the best way to be introduced. You're a man, you're in search of his lover and then his daughter. And it's difficult to find these people.
It definitely focuses on that part too. Like, it doesn't lose track.
Yeah.
And that's also a very commendable thing for the game to do.
Yeah, but I don't think... I mean, the books don't do this. The TV show doesn't do this. The games don't do it. It's, for some reason, The Witcher just does not... It is not easy for new people to jump in, but it's so engrossing that The Witcher has become kind of mainstream. Not to the level of, like, a Harry Potter, but it's, it's on that B tier. Maybe even that like C+ tier of mainstream. And yeah, I love The Witcher. I think it's fantastic in almost every way. Any nitpicks I have are just those. They're nitpicks. Overall, it's fun. It's exciting. It's engrossing. You can just sink your teeth into that game forever, especially with the DLCs. That game will never fucking end.
Which I need to play that DLC because
dude, there's
at least one of the, at least Blood and Wine.
You need to at least play Blood and Wine, but Hearts of Stone is great too. It's just a more traditional DLC thing.
One single quest. That's the main.
Yeah, but it's like a big quest.
Yeah.
Like it's solid, like maybe 10 hours of content.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's your number 8. I'm going to jump to my number 7, Ratchet and Clank. The remake. This is the one that I panicked threw in right here at the end. Celeste used to be on my list. Shout out to Celeste, but Ratchet and Clank has knocked it off.
You haven't beaten Celeste either, so...
No, I haven't, but I don't care too much about that rule. Ratchet and Clank is just joyous. Mm-hmm. Just the most joyous game you could probably play. I think this new one, mechanically, is the best Ratchet and Clank ever. Narratively, they make a couple of different choices. I understand why they make those choices. It's also tied into that very boring, not so great movie
that you watched.
Yeah,
not many people did.
Yeah,
but
did. It wasn't very good. And it and because it was tied into that movie, choices had to be made in the game. That kind of hurt the game a little bit. But it's just a blast traveling from planet to planet, seeing levels from the original game recreated in modern PS4 technology. Talk about a nostalgia hit, dude. Mm-hmm. Like, oh my god.
It seems like a game that's especially recommended to anybody that's played the other Ratchet &
Clank.
Oh,
dude, yeah. It's
a must.
In my opinion, it is the best Ratchet & Clank game. The humor is solid. It's a little kiddie.
But it is made for kids at the end of the day. It is
made for kids. It's also worth saying that game was $40 at launch.
A little bit much than what you would want to pay.
No, they could have charged a full $60 for that game.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's amazing that they charged $40. And yeah, it's just a blast from beginning to end. There's never a dull moment in that game. I'm getting these big crazy guns. Mm-hmm. I'm blasting these big crazy aliens. Everything is a blast. Clank just told a joke. Ha ha ha.
It is funny. Ha.
Yeah, it was obviously made on a budget, so you can kind of see the seams at some points, but it's still, for the most part, it's just in not the fully rendered cutscenes, but some of the side quest type cutscene things. Mm-hmm. Characters don't look each other in the eyes. They just kind of look in the general direction.
Because the models, they never tried to...
Yeah, so Clank never looks up when he's talking to somebody. He never looks up.
You think that was partly because they rushed it in time for the movie?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ratchet and Clank, it does enough to satisfy old fans and entice new ones, and it's just a blast. And if you have a kid, give him Ratchet and Clank. He'll play and replay that thing 100 times, just like I did with the original back in the day. Ratchet and Clank is fucking fantastic. Connor, you're number 7.
Number 7. I feel kind of guilty putting this on my list because I completely forgot about it until you reminded me of it. Oh. And that's that Devil May Cry 5.
Here we go.
So I'd always been interested in Devil May Cry 5. I'd always seen gameplay of it. It looked like a game I want to play, but I never actually played any of them. And then it was actually the Xbox conference, the Microsoft conference, and an E3 at some point. They unveiled their game.
2017?
2018, maybe.
18. It was 18.
Yeah, they unveiled it, and I was like, ooh, this looks fun. Especially if I was a fan of the Devil May Cry franchise at that point, I would have been gushing over this, as I saw other people do. Because I follow people on social media and follow YouTubers who love this franchise, and they were just over the moon that the 5th one was finally coming out after so long. So I went ahead and bought the definitive edition, or the collection, and played part of 2 and 3 and 4. And I fell in love with the game, and I got really, really excited when Devil May Cry 5 was going to come out. And when it did, it surpassed everything else, everything about the other games that made them so fun. The combat was more fluid. It was more dynamic than it had ever been before, especially when you have 3 different players that you can play as. Mm-hmm. Some ranging in the quality of them, like Dante was my personal favorite, quickly followed by Nero, with V being kind of, closer to the bottom. He was
interesting.
Kind of
my order is completely different.
I know it is. Yours is Nero
v Dante.
Yeah, see, I love Dante. That's probably the fan, because he plays like the old games do.
Sure.
So it spoke to me as a new fan of the series. Mm-hmm. And when I was playing that, it wrapped up the story. I know you didn't care for the story all that much, if at all. But as a guy who it only has value, I will admit, if you played the other games. If you didn't, you're going to be kind of left wanting by the end of it. But it rounds out the character arcs of Virgil, Dante, and Nero completely by the end of the game. It did that very, very well. Now, Devil May Cry's focus isn't on story, so I'm not like saying it's a masterpiece of storytelling, because it's really not, but it did what it needed to do with Devil May Cry as a series. Because it heavily relies on the characters rather than the actual events that happen. Which I think is the big reason why you were kind of just like, it sucks terribly. Because I know you didn't like that at all.
So I'll jump in. Devil May Cry 5 is the only Devil May Cry I've played.
Yes.
I played it on your recommendation, and you were right. That game is awesome.
The combat, I just have to mention before we go too far, is, I said it was, dynamic and fluid, more so than it ever had been before. But the combos that you're able to pull off that game with just pure skill alone and the tools that are given to you by the developers is absolutely amazing.
Polished to a sheet.
Yes. They knew they were as much.
I don't think there's an action game that does it better than DMC 5.
No, I think Final Fantasy VII Remake's combat and this one, Devil May Cry 5, are some of the best in terms of action games in general. Actually, I love them. I love the combat of them. And it was just everything that Devil May Cry needed to end on. But I know you were about to say some stuff too.
Yeah, Devil May Cry 5's combat is perfect. In a single word, it's perfect. All three characters play great. They play differently and great. There is not a weak link. There's ones you like more than others, but there's not a weak link. The way that game scales up is phenomenal.
Yes.
The beginning fights compared to the final fights, oh my God. And they all feel great and epic, and there's not a single enemy type gone to waste. Awesome.
Yes.
Absolutely awesome. The way that game allows you to manipulate its controls and its button mapping, I don't understand why not every game does that.
I mean, it's hard to pull off. Maybe. I can imagine this took a while for them to get. Well, actually.
Yeah, sure. But I'm talking specifically just being able to go into the settings and change your button mapping. Why can't every game do that?
The thing is that Devil May Cry has gotten this down years ago. 3 is amazing. It was breathtaking. I expected to enjoy it, but not love it as much as I did.
Oh yeah, but they could have screwed it up. There's games in between 3 and 5 that screwed it up.
4, the combat was great. It was just everything. It was just a lot of things were unpolished. But DMC was a different. People don't even consider that a Devil May Cry game.
No, I know.
But
but to circle back to your conversation about narrative, that game's narrative is fucking bananas. It doesn't make any sense. It makes zero sense, hands down. Especially to new players, it's garbage.
It's not friendly. It expects you to have been playing all the games up until that point. And if I had jumped into it without playing that collection,
but it's still garbage.
It's all in how you played the other games.
Bad, dude. It's bad.
It is not bad.
It doesn't make
definitely
sense.
Not bad.
Whatever. But that's beside the point. Devil May Cry 5 is absolutely worth playing.
Yes.
And that's a good pick. It's a good pick. Number 6.
You're number 6.
Horizon Zero Dawn.
I should have expected this.
You should have.
I should have.
Horizon Zero Dawn is one of the greatest open world games you can play this generation. The thrill of finding a new enemy type in that game is unlike the thrill I've ever felt playing a video game. They nail it. Trying to figure out how to take down a Thunderjaw for the first time, or I forget what it's called, like the Thunderhawk or whatever it's called, the big bird.
Yes.
Figuring out how to take those things down, it's like a puzzle in itself, and it's just so exciting and thrilling, and at times super cinematic. The combat is fluid. The bow mechanics, I think, are some of the best in games. Not the best, but some of the best. You put an arrow where you want to pretty much every time, if you have the skill to match it. The diversity in weapons, not all are as good as others, but they've all got a purpose. The feeling of progression. That was the first PlayStation 4 game I had played this generation where I said, hey, if you don't platinum this game, because viewers know I love platinum.
Yes.
If you don't platinum Horizon Zero Dawn, you're doing yourself a disservice.
You love the platinums, and more so in this game than I think you ever had in others.
That one, I think, is the perfect way to play that game. that trophy list is perfect. It's exactly the right amount of everything you want to do. Not to mention the narrative, though not the greatest, still really solid, and they've got enough narrative hooks in you to keep it intriguing from beginning to end.
A lot of mystery.
The whole time it's interesting. And when you realize the dual narratives that are happening, it's fantastic. And it's just the secondary plot is just as engrossing as Aloy's main plot.
I played Horizon Zero Dawn, never even got halfway. I may not even gotten a quarter of the way.
Oh my god, it's
very
so good.
It's another one of those games I didn't have a reason to drop it. I just kind of focused on other things
so
instead.
Good.
But
you need to go back to that game.
The gameplay is just great. Like really just fighting
So
against
good.
all these different dinosaur enemies is very fun.
Yeah.
I think it kind of got brought down with human enemies.
The human enemies are the weakest link in terms of enemy type. There's also there's some like open world jank in it that you wouldn't like. That at that point in time you had hoped Witcher 3 had said, "Hey, this is how open world games work now." Horizon feels like a pre-Witcher 3 game, but that doesn't change the fact that it's fucking great. The voice acting's not very good. Aloy herself is good, and the main cast surrounding her is pretty good. But when you start getting into some of the lesser known side characters, it falls off a cliff. But yeah, if you haven't played Horizon Zero Dawn and you own a PlayStation 4, go play it. You're doing yourself a disservice.
I would agree. I'm doing myself a disservice by not continuing the game, actually. So,
yeah,
go play it.
Maybe one day, Connor, will return.
I probably will. I mean,
you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
That's a game I can see myself going back to.
Or are you going to go play whatever bullshit fantasy game you were playing
Warhammer
last week?
Vermintide 2.
No, different fantasy game. The one you were... Never mind. 2 weeks ago. Actually. But Connor, what's your number 6?
So, a little bit similar to what you said earlier. My number 6 pick is Persona 5. But not Royal. Because, once again, going with my list, I didn't beat Royal. And I never got to the point where it became a different game either.
That's silly. I'm going to count it as the same game.
Well, the problem is I didn't play Royal. Royal is a different game. It has different characters.
That's silly. You're being silly.
I haven't played Persona 5 Royal all the way to where I got to any new content whatsoever. I have nothing new in that game that I've experienced. So what I did play was the first Persona 5.
You're being silly.
And Persona 5...
I'm counting it as the same thing.
It's different. We can say it on a paper, but it's different. Anyway, though, Persona 5, I mean, you've pretty much covered a lot of it. Outside of the extra stuff that's put into the game, it's just great. I remember I got the game. It was my first Persona game. I didn't play 4. That was not my first experience like it was for you. And I popped in the game, and for 2 weeks straight, that's all I played. I played it on hard, which was a mistake, because if you do end up playing this game, if you haven't already, do not do that, because the real joy of the game is with the characters and getting up your confidant rating with them. Because when you spend more time with characters, get to know them more, take advantage of the romance options that the game has to offer.
Did you do that?
Oh, yeah. You actually missed out on it. I remember you telling me that. The romance option.
We don't need to talk about that.
But the thing is, like, it does actually matter. The romance option did affect that. Like, it made your relationship with that character stronger than it is with other characters. But you're right. Beside that point, the characters really were what made this game good. Because other than that, you do have, it's a JRPG. You fight God. it's what you usually do with this kind of game. It's a Persona game. It's a Persona game. It's always that.
You end up fighting a god.
Yeah. You lived in the city. You grew attached to those characters as family, like you said. Like I said, pretty much everything you covered is exactly how I feel about Persona 5 in general.
It's great. It's a great pick.
Not much else to say on that.
So my number 5, The Last of Us Part 2.
I'm surprised. Am I surprised? I feel
Personally, this game would probably be number 1 on this list. Yeah, it would be number 1 on this list. I adore The Last of Us Part 2. I'm putting it in mental conversations with myself about whether or not it might just be my favorite game of all time. The fucking balls on Naughty Dog to make and no spoilers here, even though we're well past the spoiler point. But no spoilers here. The fucking balls to make the narrative choices that they make in that game and the incredible ways in which it pays off. Just another level of narrative storytelling that we haven't really seen in video games ever. You can argue the first Last of Us, but I think this one takes it just another step forward. The first Last of Us is a benchmark in narratives in video games. This one, I think, will be held to that same level of respect narratively. The gameplay, though, some people might say it just feels like the old one. The level of polish and the extra level of dexterity that's added to it, and just some other things you can do to it, like, it's head and shoulders mechanically above the first game. Not to say that the first one is bad in any way.
Mechanically
it's just 7 years older.
Just better. Mechanically,
it's just mechanically just better.
Even better than the remastered, obviously, too.
Yeah. And I, like, just the themes in that game and the mental and physical hell these characters drag themselves through, and the way that the characters are true to themselves even when it will detach the audience from it or from them. It's just fucking crazy that all of these things came together so well. I adore The Last of Us 2. It's one of my favorite games of all time, if not my favorite game of all time. It's fighting nostalgia, which is a hard fight to win. But I can't sing the praises of that game enough. The only thing that keeps it back on this certain list, where if you have a PS4, you need to go out and get these things the way I've framed my list, is one, it depends heavily on the first game. So if you haven't played the first game, go play that. It's one of the greatest games of all time. You should play it anyway.
Easy game to play, too. Not that long.
No, yeah. 10 hours, if you wanted to, you could do it in one sitting. You shouldn't. You should really...
enjoy the journey.
Enjoy the journey and savor it. And I feel very similar to the second one, even though I rushed through it in 48 hours.
Yeah.
But it very much depends on the first one. You can, I guess, if you wanted to, get by without it, but you should.
No, I can't say that.
Know,
I can't
it's
advertise
so hard
that.
to say. But also, it's so heavy and depressing, and it's so negative that I can understand why this is not the first game you want to reach to when you see a full list of PlayStation 4 games. And though I think it's the best example that the medium has for narratives, I don't think it's the best example the medium has for why this medium is so great. Though it does things that only video games can do, those narrative choices I was talking about, they can't be done in a movie and have the same effect. And the first one has similar things as well, where only in video games can that happen. Mm-hmm. And you feel the impact of the choices that are made. However, games reach such a wide audience that I think there's quote unquote more fun games you can play, and that are better introductions to the world of gaming, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like your Uncharted's or your your like Batman Arkham games, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, anyways, that's my number 5. Connor, you want to add anything to The Last of Us Part 2?
Well, we didn't have a whole entire review of that earlier. The very, very, very long conversation, if I remember correctly. You have been very consistent with your likes and a few dislikes, criticisms about the game. I've kind of said that narratively, everything works. Mm-hmm. I never thought why. I know a criticism was, why is a character acting this way? It's stupid. The way it's going doesn't make sense. I've heard those criticisms. I cannot agree with them. So at the end of the day, when it comes to a lot of the criticisms that I've heard of the game, I have to disagree with them. But I felt that even though everything made sense, narratively, everything made sense, and I never thought, this is stupid, why is this happening? I just didn't get anything from it. I didn't care at the end of the day about any of the characters, really. Even Ellie, who I grew to love in the first one, I didn't care about her here. Abby was a good character. Some of the characters were very well written, but they just didn't do anything for me.
I think they were all well written, but that's beside
Somewhat.
I just
don't
think
know
some
about
were
all.
more engaging and more well developed than others. But they
well-
were all well written. Like, they all had their purpose.
They all had their purpose.
Just
Yeah, but
some of their purposes were less
you would say less
impactful.
Yeah,
than
you say
others.
less impactful. I would say less good, and just didn't leave any sort of impression. Even if they were good or bad, except for one character.
I
I
think
think you
you're-
know about that.
I think your opinions would change on a second playthrough.
But that's the other thing. Is that
I
just
understand
have-
you don't want to, but I think they would change on a second playthrough.
Even if that's the case, though, the game also is very slow and too long for its own good, which leads to a
better
gaming
on a second
experience
playthrough.
that's like
It's better on a second playthrough.
it's still just a little draggy. It feels.
It
to
is.
want to go back to it.
It is. There's a lot. I'm not saying go do it now, but in time.
Yeah, I just have too many issues, personal issues, and lack of care for the game to enjoy it as much as you do. But obviously, your love for it has been pretty out there. Yeah,
I've been well documented in my love for the game.
Yeah, and you are consistent with your own beliefs on the game and why you like them. And
There are moments in that game.
yeah, they just seem to have hit really hard.
And
for
that
you.
game asks more emotionally from its player than any other video game, period. Like, I don't think there's another game that not asks, demands players feel such a wide range of emotions.
Yeah, but then for me, it just didn't hit.
Okay.
But number five for a list of games you should play on PS4. For my fifth one, it's one that you never got into as well, which is Nier Automata. Nier Automata was a game made by a guy named Yoko Taro, a very interesting character, but it's, a Japanese game. It's not a JRPG. I'm always tempted to call it that because
An action game.
It's an action-adventure game. The reason why Nier Automata is such a need-to-play game is because it does take place in a world that has connecting things in it, but at the end of the day, none of it is necessary in the slightest to enjoy the story. Now, the big part of what makes the game so good is the story and the themes, many, philosophical themes that are interjected into the story about what it means to be human, what it means to be, a living, thinking thing. And a game full of androids that are fighting against robots that are apparently made by some, extremely powerful aliens that have wiped out all humanities on Earth and made them go to the moon to seek sanctuary it's a phenomenal game. And it just kind of came out of nowhere for a lot of people because the first Nier had a very strong cult following, and the Drakengard games, which are also connected in a way, also very strong cult following. But Nier Automata was able to successfully put this into the mainstream because of its action. Because it always had a good story, but the action was always very iffy. It was always clunky, and it was obvious that Yoko Taro wanted it to be greater than it ever actually was, but he never had the opportunity to have the tools necessary to make it that way. And with Platinum Games making this game, and Platinum Games being known for how
Platinum makes
amazing
great action
their
games.
combat is, they were able to make this so, fluid. They were able to make you, go around the map with all these different weapons that you can use and have their own movesets. Kind of similar in the sense that you can do lots of things with them, even though it doesn't give you many tools to do so. Like, it's not very combo heavy. But even so, you just can, enjoy the spectacle of cutting through a bunch of different robots and just see the game play out in front of you. And it was extremely, extremely fun. But it's very spoiler heavy. And the real reason you should play the game is if you're looking for a narratively heavy game with a heavy emphasis on thematic elements. But it's very...
This sounds, every time I hear about this game, it sounds like my cup of tea. But for whatever reason, I tried to play it 2-3 times. Something about the world, the way it looks, the way it's crafted, I could not find it engaging.
The world is very empty. It's not supposed to be a world with a bunch of different things in it.
It's
Very
just dirty
loaded.
and...
Yes, it's very dirty. It's post-apocalyptic at the end of the
but
day.
not even in like a Fallout interesting type way,
No.
to me at least. And anytime your world population is mostly robots
that live on a space station.
Yeah, it's just I immediately find that it's just disengaging, and I found it hard to care. Granted, I never gave it the full shot. I never made it past the first 2-3 hours.
Yeah, and there are multiple different routes in the game. It's split up into these routes, which is a very unique way to do things.
Yeah.
And unless you play all of them, you're not going to get the full experience.
Yeah.
In fact, some reviewers gave it bad reviews because they didn't know that there were more parts to do, and then they were so different and carried on the story. Very few people, especially in comparison to the older games like Drakengard 3, where most people who played the game didn't even know about those other routes. But at the end of the day, it is a very weird game, and it kind of works in not giving as much attention as other games have because it's so unique and strange. Mm-hmm. But I'd recommend it to anybody because it's really a fun game at its core, and I never was bored by it.
I also think its diversity in its mechanics lead it to be kind of like, sort of like a jack of all trades, like master of none.
Very
type
much
thing.
so.
So I never found any column of combat to be particularly great.
Yeah, granted, enemy types aren't very, expansive, aren't varied. I can see that. Like, there's definitely problems with the game. I can definitely see, even if you played this game and enjoyed it, I probably couldn't see you putting it this high up on the list. But it's a game that you just really got to take your time with and suck in everything the game is throwing at you, because it is a complex game at the end of the day. As even though you can play it without even regarding any of that at all and just seeing it as a game with a story, because it's very hard to describe Nier. Probably one of the harder games for me to describe why it's so good.
Yeah,
because,
it's really one you have to experience.
Yes.
The optimist in me would like to say that I'll go back and give it another shot, or force myself to get to the point to where, it captures me entirely.
Yes.
The realist in me says it's just forever going to be on my pile of shame.
Now, to end this game, two things I need to point out. One of them, really just one point I need to make. The music is phenomenal.
This is the game with the music you were talking about earlier?
No, it's not.
Oh.
It didn't come out in the same year.
2017?
2017. It beat out Persona 5 for the soundtrack.
That's insane.
Now, at the time, it was like, it's either going to be Persona 5 or Nier. And at the end of the day, Nier is more unique in its soundtrack. It's very, very, very sonorous.
Connor, that jazz.
When I said it's close, because those are some
jazz.
amazing soundtracks in the same year.
Give me jazz every time.
Jazz is pretty sick.
Yeah.
But that's my number 5 pick.
Okay, solid pick. I'm not mad at that pick. My number 4 is The Witcher 3.
Ah, there it is.
So we talked about it already, so we don't need to go into depth. So let's go ahead, jump into your number 4.
Oh.
Yeah, we're just gonna breeze right past it. We talked about Witcher enough.
My number 4 is, this is the one I was a little bit iffy on putting on my list, because one of the parameters we set, as I didn't know if it was too focused on being a PS4 game or if it's more focused on the multi-platform aspect. But that game is Dark Souls 3. So it's the only game that came out on next gen in the Dark Souls franchise. So 1 and 2 came out on Xbox 360, and this was the culmination of what I consider one of my all-time favorite franchises ever made, and seemingly one of the more impactful games that have come out in recent years. I mean, you see constantly people say, well, it's like the Dark Souls of puzzle games.
I mean, Star Wars ripped it off.
Yeah, but it's that good and can work with so many games.
Yeah.
Which is why it's so universally recognized.
Well, you can even feel its impact in games that aren't intrinsically designed. Like that. Assassin's Creed Odyssey with its button mapping. You can feel it. Dark Souls as a franchise has left its impact on gaming, and it's gonna be remembered as really that turn in action games that I think we haven't gotten since early PS2.
And, well, that pretty much goes without saying, as you just said. It's just amazing in that regard. It's impactful. But when it comes to the game itself, just looking at it in a bubble,
it sucks. It's terrible. Bad game.
I fucking knew it. I knew he does not like any of the Dark Souls games, and I knew it was coming. No. I didn't even know it was coming, because I thought for a second, he's doing good praises against it.
You thought I was going to be respectable today.
Here's the thing. The RPG systems in that game, when it comes to the side quests, there's not really any side quests at all. The real focus of the RPG elements are in customization, because you can have so many different builds with so much different types of armor, different weapons, that it almost seems endless, and that in things like PvP, when I go up against other players, it's almost always different.
It's always wild to me that game has PvP.
It works. Now, Dark Souls 3, not as much as something like Dark Souls 1, which allows you to really fuck with players, but it still was great. But more importantly, the level design of Dark Souls games has always been phenomenal. I think Dark Souls 3 is the best. Because even though this is the top PS4 games, this is my favorite Dark Souls game. Because it rounds everything out. All of the lore of Dark Souls, which, by the way, is amazingly done, because it's all done in a non-linear way. They just give it through item description.
Yeah, but lore isn't story, and this game has no story.
Well, this is one of those things where I argue lore is story, because it creates a whole overarching narrative that is tied into all those lore pits. Everything kind of works together to do a complete package of what the story of Dark Souls is. Because all of them are pretty much connected when you think about it, because there's constantly things that happen in the first game that are just as relevant in the third game. Without going into too many details, because there's just so much to talk about, they were able to very expertly create a story without telling it in the way that it's normally told. But even beyond that, bosses. One of the things you said about there being the impact of Dark Souls, I feel like Dark Souls has kind of revitalized the idea of boss battles. Because I remember a time...
That's true. Boss battles started going away.
They started going away, yeah. And now I feel like they're not at the forefront as they were in the past, but they're still there.
I think they're at the correct level now.
They are at the correct level, yeah. Not every single game needs a boss fight.
Yeah.
But Dark Souls 3 was able to keep it in that discourse. Now people are like, well, I'm more open to bosses being a normal thing now. And especially when you have bosses that are so well made, because they put, From Software put so much effort into how much they made the boss fights work, to make them sure they weren't overpowered, which would be a problem, I think, in Dark Souls 1 every now and then with someone like Ornstein and Smo. But even though some people would probably fight me on that. But Dark Souls 3 is able to make boss fights.
Fucking nerd.
Yes. But Dark Souls 3 is able to make some extremely well-designed boss fights, both in terms of how they look and in terms of how they play. And it all works together, once again, going back to the way you have different builds. Because some bosses will be incredibly hard to beat if you're a magic build. Some of them are just like a breeze, and you can do it easily. And then, vice versa. I could really go into this game
all day
for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Last bit, I always feel like this is something I tack on at the end. The music is phenomenal. It's out of all the Dark Souls games, it's probably it's one of the best soundtracks of those games.
You're including Bloodborne in this conversation?
No. I'm including Dark Souls. I know people say Soulsborne, but at the end of the day, Bloodborne is a different game. It's not the same game.
Well, I think Bloodborne showed that there can be some diversity in this genre.
Yes, yeah.
It doesn't all have to be Dark Souls.
No.
Before Bloodborne, it was all Dark Souls. And funny enough, it took From Software to show these motherfuckers, listen, it's not just, just do it right.
Yeah.
And it's fine.
But without going into too much, that's what I have to say about that.
All right. Well, that's Dark Souls. Well, this is actually a good transition when we were talking about the impact of Dark Souls. My number 3, heavily influenced by both Dark Souls and Last of Us. Obviously the first one. God of War. 2018. PlayStation 4. Yeah. God of War was different. It was an action game, but it took its narrative super seriously. It took its character seriously. It took the world it lives in seriously. But it didn't let its narrative compromise its core gameplay experience. Yes.
Which, by the way, you and me didn't play the original God of Wars. Or at least I did. You did.
I played God of War 1, most of God of War 2, and about the first hour of God of War 3.
Well, speaking from my perspective, it's able to do a really good job of presenting you the story of Kratos if you hadn't played those games. Because I didn't play them at all.
For that first trilogy, if you've played one, you've played them all.
Yeah.
They all mechanically got better, but they're all pretty much the same. Yeah, and the way they were able to give depth to Kratos in actual meaningful ways, people be like, oh, he was deep before. Just because you had a tragic backstory doesn't make you deep.
This one they made it actually seem like it's a serious impact.
Had
on
a
him.
range of emotions.
Yes, rage.
And when he was angry, he didn't always want to show that he was angry.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's the difference. In the original trilogy, Kratos has 2 modes: angry or horny. And that's really it.
Yep. Typical action hero.
Yeah. So the way they were able to develop Kratos and make him a full 3-dimensional character
In one game.
In one game.
Uh-huh.
That's obvious influence from The Last of Us.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously the AI partnership with his son Atreus, obvious influence from The Last of Us.
Well, you're probably on Twitter as well as I am, and I see Neil Druckmann and Corey Balrog. Balrog.
I don't know. You've said it so many different ways. I don't even know what the real one is anymore.
They have a friendly relationship, and I can see somehow him saying like, "Oh, that guy's
clear
seems
respect
really good."
between the
Yeah.
two. Yeah.
Yes, very obvious.
And yeah, and though I think God of War's story and narrative and characters aren't the best the medium has to offer, it's really freaking good.
Yeah. There's not really any weak parts about that in my eyes.
I mean, narratively, I think the only ones beating them right now are Naughty Dog. Mm-hmm. Or that one game. But that says a lot.
Yeah, I know.
Naughty Dog delivers incredible stories.
I have to express my happiness for this when it was like, I like the Video Game Awards. Like, I know it's kind of a joke to a lot of people, but I love them.
It's becoming less of a joke.
Yeah, it's not. But I've still seen people make fun of it a lot.
Yeah.
And I just... Red Dead Redemption 2 came out that same year, and I thought that was going to win, but I was so happy to know that people who played these games, even as good as Red Dead Redemption 2 was, that God of War edged it out and became that game of the year that year.
Yeah.
Because it really, really deserved it
Yeah.
with what it was able to do all of a sudden out of nowhere.
And there's so few flaws in God of War.
Yeah.
I think you could dip into its menus are kind of messy, its RPG mechanics are kind of half-baked.
But it wasn't really a heavy RPG game in the first place.
It's not. I think its replayability, which is a huge factor for me, I think its replayability is super low.
I didn't feel the need to jump back into it as much as I loved it.
Every time I've tried, I can't get past what is that other realm called? That first realm you go to, Alfheim?
Yes.
I can't get past that.
As in you hate it.
No, I don't hate it. I mean, it's... I don't like Alfheim. It's probably my least favorite part of the game, but I can't get past it again.
Yeah.
But, I mean, just the way that game... That game... And then talk about Dark Souls' influence with how its button mapping is and how its controls work and how it approaches combat encounters. Mm-hmm. Oh my god, dude. It takes it... And probably doesn't do it as well, but makes it more accessible than a Dark Souls game. And it just does...
It is definitely more accessible.
I don't know if there's another game out there that does... It's not the best in any category, but I don't know if there's another game that does as well in every category as God of War. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, I agree.
Like, just across... Like, it's like across the board 8s makes it a 10. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like when there's so little to criticize, like actually criticize of it, you can't discount it. Yeah.
Great fucking game. Great fucking story. Great fucking growth in characters.
Great soundtrack.
Great soundtrack.
Yes.
I can't wait to see where we're taking this narrative.
Very, very interested as well.
And that's something I've never felt for God of War. I finished God of War 1. I was like, all right, that was cool. Mm-hmm. It was neat. Started God of War 2, and I said, oh, this is literally just more of the same.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. I didn't even finish it. Started God of War 3, and I said, oh, this series went nowhere. It ran in circles until it became irrelevant. And then when God of War came out...
It changed that.
It changed that. And
shows what you can do.
It's just proof that as this medium matures, one, its relevancy, but also it shows that we can go back and look at some of those older products and really bring the depth that was needed but couldn't be met by some of those older stories and older concepts in video games. And I think further proof of that is Final Fantasy VII Remake. But yeah, God of War Dude, if you have a PS4 and you haven't played God of War, like, what are you doing?
There's no reason to not play it.
You're like, and you don't even need to play the old games.
I didn't.
You don't need to. They do a good enough job narratively to introduce, like, oh my god.
And through exposure, we kind of all know who Kratos is. I think that simplistic aspect of his character kind of helped with this one because you didn't need to know anything about his character.
He hit mainstream games really fast.
Everyone knows he's an angry guy. His family got killed by the gods. He killed them all.
Yeah,
and Zeus was his father.
Yeah,
that's it.
So yeah, and he lived in that kind of lived in that Master Chief era, that early Master Chief era.
Characters are badass.
Yeah, where Master Chief was just he's just a badass soldier in green armor. Cool.
Yep.
Oh, Kratos is just an angry dude who rips people apart
with red paint. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but fuck, God of War is so good.
Yeah, it really is. Really is.
What's your number 3, Connor?
Now, for my number 3 pick is God of War 4. So your number 2 pick.
Hey-o! No, God of War is my number 3. So 2 3s.
No, so now your number 2 pick.
Oh, because
that's it. Yeah.
I see.
By the way, I feel like just off the top of my head, we kind of have a winner now because I doubt the next 2 games are going to be the same.
Our next 2 games are not going to be the same.
Yeah. So I think prediction: God of War 1. Just think.
It's in the lead right now.
Yeah.
So unless you pull some shit that's gonna just blow me away, God of War is gonna be the number 1 game. My number 2 is Uncharted 4.
Yep.
Which we already talked about. So great story, great characters, great action, all that. Yeah. Let's jump to your number 2.
My number 2, you probably saw this coming around this point, is Bloodborne.
Bloodborne. You double dipped in the From Software.
There's a reason why Bloodborne was one of the reasons why so many people bought a PS4. Because people really wanted it. If you saw a lot of, like even my brother, who was so opposite to the idea of getting a PS4, was like, I'm buying it for Bloodborne. And then he bought it for Bloodborne. He bought the whole console pretty much just for that.
I'll say Bloodborne is a game I didn't understand its impact until much later. So that's an interesting point you've brought up.
Now, Bloodborne is able to take a lot of what makes Dark Souls, and do its own spin on it. So one of the things I loved about Dark Souls was all the different builds you can do.
Which I'll say, as someone who is not a fan of those games,
yes,
Bloodborne and maybe Neo are the only ones that I've considered actually playing. Oh, Sekiro.
But I would recommend.
But I'm not going back to Sekiro. I could see I've tried Bloodborne the first hour or so. I could see myself going back to Bloodborne.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. But Bloodborne, it doesn't have the builds that Dark Souls has, so it's not very diverse in what your character can do. But it's so much more fun. Just in terms of the combat. Like, Dark Souls, I can understand someone picking that up and not really vibing with the combat. But with Bloodborne, I find it hard to not, because you're dashing around. It's very, it's very aggressive. You have to, dodge enemy attacks. If you get hit, you can regain health by hitting them back and, having health regained from hits.
I think specifically also speaking to accessibility to players, there is something about the world and the atmosphere of Bloodborne versus Dark Souls that it's instantly more interesting.
That's the next thing. Dark Souls 3 has Dark Souls has very varied atmospheres and varied locations. Bloodborne is very uniform. It's dark. It's grimy. It's Victorian at sometimes.
Yeah, that gothic Victorian look adds a lot more than just the murkiness of Dark Souls.
Exactly. And it does work. Because even though it has very little bright lights and colorful things, it's able to create an amazing environment. I don't think any other game is able to make you feel as much as Bloodborne just by walking down a street that's littered with bodies and I'm assuming it has something to do with your number 1 pick. Your little laugh that you did.
No, I'm trying to don't pay attention.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, everything about that game was amazing. Now, I did mention earlier that the soundtrack that got beat out by Witcher 3 was this one, because Bloodborne has an amazing soundtrack. I could
with my limited experience to to Bloodborne. Witcher 3 takes its lunch.
But here's the thing: the reason why Witcher 3 won is because there's more soundtracks playing in general. Bloodborne doesn't have music that's playing while you're just roaming around.
Pickier with its choice.
But the boss music is able to make it so much closer, because in addition to these amazingly designed bosses, once again, some of the best that Dark Soul or Soulsborne has to offer, it uses music in a way that I listen to it casually. I just turn it on. It's that good, and I even see people on YouTube videos talk about how saying I just listen to this casually. This is one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard.
Interesting.
And it's got such a varied sound.
I think you could do that with Witcher 3 too. But...
You could with Witcher 3 as well, but I actually spent more time with Bloodborne's
that Gwent
music.
theme. I could just listen to the Gwent theme.
I don't remember that.
You know?
I don't even remember that. I feel like it's jovial.
Yeah, like whatever.
That one's good. That one's amazing. But Bloodborne has that atmosphere that's set it apart from Dark Souls. You know, Sekiro had its Japanese aesthetic going on, but at the end of the day, Bloodborne was able to do something that I feel was just more unique and more interesting that no other game had done up until that point. Because even though Victorian settings have happened, it was crafted in a way that still had that fantasy element to it. So you can recognize, environments like this existed in the world at some point.
Right.
But Bloodborne still had that fantastical element to it, especially when you get into the later parts of the game and all these eldritch horror aspects come into it. And it's just, same thing with Dark Souls. I'm limiting myself and have all the things I can talk about with it, but it is one of my favorite games made of all time as well.
That's great. I have nothing but respect for Bloodborne, even though I don't have a taste for that genre.
Fair enough.
And that's one that, like, you just look back and you see, oh, yeah, that game had impact. Maybe even more so than Dark Souls.
Now, do you see that begrudgingly?
No.
Okay.
No.
I was curious.
It gets a little begrudgingly when people put it in, like, top 10 conversations of all time. For me personally, but I don't disrespect the opinion, but it's like all right, really?
Yeah, I can't imagine anyone that would put in their top 10 list Bloodborne, especially high.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I couldn't imagine that at all.
Oh, it's because it's in your list. That's this is sarcasm you throw at me.
Yeah.
Okay, that's funny.
Your number one.
So let's jump to my number one, Connor. As a little bit of fun, I'm just going to throw at you kind of willy-nilly. Can you guess my number one? It's unfortunate that you've already revealed your hand, so I already know what your number one is.
Yeah, you do. You do. Yeah,
because of our earlier conversation.
You called it. Yeah, you called it earlier. What was I supposed to say? In fairness, what was I supposed to say to that?
I have no idea. Yeah, but anyways, can you guess my number one?
Okay. Originally, that someone should play.
Yeah.
I can imagine it being a joke choice. I don't think it is, but I can imagine it being a joke choice because it's not defined as your personal favorite, but what every PlayStation player should play.
Uh-oh. Keep going.
So I'm a little bit... I'm not thinking like the best games that came out on PS4, but rather games that had a very strong impact on PS4.
Okay, now I'm interested. I have no clue where you're going now. Go.
I have no clue where I'm going either because I have no clue.
You have zero clue?
And I shouldn't I?
You were just filling time?
No, I wasn't filling time. I was right about what I was saying, but that still leaves me with not knowing what game.
Do you have? Just give me a guess.
Red Dead Redemption 2?
Fuck no. Oh. Fuck no. Not even close. I'll give you one more guess.
Give me a guess.
I'll give you one more guess.
Give me a guess, yeah.
So what's your one more guess?
Give me what's Oh, you give me one.
All right, don't do that. That's nasty. I hear that twice. So give me a final guess. It's any game. I'll give you a hint. It's really on brand. For me.
It's not a Star Wars game, is it?
No.
Fuck. It's Spider-Man PS4.
Spider-Man PS4.
I should have guessed.
Marvel's Spider-Man, baby. If you want to talk about pure gameplay fun, just absolute blast, balls to the wall the whole time.
I would be talking about Devil May Cry 5. Yes.
Yeah, that's a solid choice as well. But this one, oh my god, it's so fun. Just the act of traversal in this game is fun. Connor, did you know there's a fast travel system in Spider-Man?
Nope.
Because it's so easily forgettable, because who the fuck fast travels in Spider-Man? Now, you're swinging 300 miles away because, fuck it, it's fun to swing.
It's also quick, too, so you never really have to worry about things.
Yeah. It's almost as quick as waiting for that loading screen. Oh my God, can I talk to you about one of the best interpretations of Spider-Man ever, as a fan and just outside of fandom? This version of Spider-Man is premier Spidey.
It is.
This is one, like, this instantly you're like, that's Spider-Man. That's the version I'm going to point to if anybody asks who is Spider-Man.
You know, I never played any of the Spider-Man games. I wasn't a big fan of the movies. I think they're very overrated. I'm not a big fan of Spider-Man. Sure. And when this game came out, you were ecstatic about it. You were, like, gushing about it. And
I was also critical because I've been burned before.
But you definitely weren't burned this time.
Oh, no, I wasn't going.
And I was like, even as a fan of Spider-Man, I was just like, well, it looks really fun. And then I played it. I had a lot of fun, yeah. Never played any of the DLCs, which I felt like at one point you said I should play. But then another time you said no.
No, you don't need to.
Yeah.
You don't need to.
Regardless of the DLC, it's a phenomenally fun game. Very, very fun.
So fun. And just the narrative twists that they do to the general Spider-Man lore, especially in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With that final choice that is made. What? Are you freaking kidding me? So I'm gushing over this game as a fan, all right? It's great. Mechanically, it's super solid. Are all the mechanics necessary? No. Mm-hmm. But are they all fun?
Yeah.
When it comes to combat...
Yeah,
they're all fun. Then they throw in the puzzle things, and those aren't very good at all.
Yeah.
But, like, all the gadgets, several of those gadgets are fucking useless.
Yeah, but that's not
But they're fun.
But even then, you don't even use them because it's just fun to use your Spidey powers.
You don't even need to. You don't even need to. And it's just... But it's still there for pure fun and joy and excitement and saying, yeah, that's Spider-Man. That's what that is. Also, the best... I'm saying it now. The best Spider-Man costume ever made is that white spider Insomniac suit. I'm saying it right now.
It is good.
That suit, oh my God. I've never seen a suit and been like, I don't know about that. And then as soon as I saw it, like, I just kept looking at it. I just kept going, no, this is so good.
It's what you wanted.
And then if you go and look at comic books where he's inserted into comic books, that suit is inserted into comic. It looks beautiful on good art. Oh my God, it's such a good suit. And the acting in this game, fan-fucking-tastic.
Very good.
Connor, you and I play a lot of video games.
Yeah.
So you and I both know that in open-world games, the best acting is in the actual cinematics. And when you're in the in-world, like, traversal dialogue, it can often fall a little flat. Or when you're, like, just getting meaningless side quests, the acting can fall a little flat. It's just a little generic or boring or uninteresting. Spider-Man? No.
Oh, yeah.
This dialogue is interesting the entire time. And the actors bring their A game 100% of the time. Also, they take it a step further with traversal dialogue, Connor. When you're swinging, it's a different recorded voice line than when you're just standing still.
Yeah.
When you're swinging, Yuri Lowenthal is going, yeah, Aunt May, I'll get there, son. Yeah, I'm on my way right now. Or when he's just standing still, yeah, Aunt May, I'll be there, as soon as I can. What?
Yeah.
Who thought of that? You're a fucking genius.
That was a selling point, and I can imagine other game developers saying, write that down, write it down.
They absolutely should.
And then people who deal with audio in games are like, oh, fuck.
They must hate it. They're like, fuck, I gotta...
extra work. It's
I've got to engineer it in a way to where I have to take the player's emotions into account. Damn it. Great fucking game.
Yeah.
I've replayed it 4 times. I love this game. It's not my top 10 because it's got some issues, like my personal top 10, because it's got some issues. But I fucking adore this game. And there is no doubt in my mind the official sequel, not the Miles Morales game, but the official sequel, the Spider-Man 2, is going to be a masterpiece. It's going to be a fucking masterpiece. Just based off of the back of this game alone.
Mm-hmm.
But if I take a step outside of myself and outside of the Spidey fan that I am, and outside of my personal experience. It's hard for me to name a game on PlayStation 4 that a newcomer should not just go and get. Because it's baseline, you don't give a fuck about superheroes. Baseline,
Same
it's
here.
super fucking fun.
Don't care about comic books, don't care about the Marvel movies, don't care about Spider-Man, but I loved it all the same.
But this game is great.
It is, yeah.
Even you, who doesn't like all these things, said,
Don't hate
no,
it.
No, that
Don't
game
hate
is
it.
a blast.
Don't hate it. You need to stress that. No, like,
Yeah.
Well, I kind of hate comic books, but I don't hate the Spider-Man character.
You're so unintelligent. You read manga.
intelligent.
It's the same shit. It's the same shit.
No, it's not. No, it's not. No,
It's the same shit,
no,
but
it is
All
not.
right, well, that's a disgusting noise. It's the same shit, but it's in color, which makes it better.
My face was not happy.
Yeah, if you don't have a PlayStation and you're just saying, hey, Tavin, I bought this, what should I get with it? Spider-Man is first choice. Because, hey, it's fun, its tone is light. If you have kids, your kids can play it. It's got a story that is really good and impactful, and the final choices in it are phenomenal. It's combat, not perfect, but really damn close. Mm-hmm. Its pacing is incredible outside of a few small segments that are still fun the first time, but on repeat, they're fucking drags. I'm speaking specifically when you're playing as like Mary Jane or Miles. Mm-hmm. Those parts are terrible on replay. And talk about taking the best elements of like your cliche open world mechanics, like going and unlocking towers and stuff, and just the act of being able to swing through a city breathes so much life into those mechanics.
I highly agree.
Mm-hmm. That like, it's like, man, yeah, I'm really sick of climbing towers, or I'm really sick of just collecting random items, or I'm really sick of just going from one combat base to another. Oh wait, but I can swing there?
It changes everything, doesn't it?
It changes everything.
I was making a list based off the games that I would recommend to PS4 players, like new PS4 players. Minus Bloodborne, it'd probably be my number one pick, as well.
But how do you recommend Bloodborne, which is so obtuse in its design, over?
Because Tavin, I can't.
You can't.
I can't separate my love for that to do that. But even so, Spider-Man PS4, amazing
game. And not my favorite game. I think it's the best superhero video game.
Beating out Batman Arkham City?
Yeah.
Which is
it's
close
not fair. There's 10 years between those games.
That would be a close second, though. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. I know people love those games.
Marvel's Spider-Man, you can't go wrong with it. You just can't go wrong with it.
No, you can't. And kids love it, too. So
yeah,
anyone can play it. I've seen videos of kids playing it.
It works for literally everybody.
Yeah. Very inclusive.
Very. But in not in a bad way, but in like a everybody can play this way.
Yeah.
And it's still great. It's the Pixar movies of video games, you know?
Well, Pixar's kind of gone more like Disney, I would say.
No, Pixar movies are still great, Doc. Go watch Coco.
They did do that. Huh?
Coco's great.
I haven't seen it, but
you should go watch Coco.
Turned in for a conversation with Spider-Man about Coco.
Two-penny Gamescast.
Yeah.
So, Connor, what is your number one?
Well, you know what my number one pick is. My number one pick is the Final Fantasy VII Remake. I love this game. I held off on gushing about it when you put it so low on the list. So low. So very, very,
to be fair, there's
low.
So many other great games I could have put on this list.
For you, it makes tons of sense.
Yeah.
But for me, someone who's played the original Final Fantasy VII, I won't lie, nostalgia, heavy impact on this, because I played the original one when I was younger, when I was just starting out in high school. It was one of the, it actually came out.
That would be why it's so low on my list, because I have no nostalgia for
Exactly. Well, beyond the nostalgia even, it's an improvement upon Final Fantasy VII as a game itself. Just this one part. Obviously,
as of right now,
it's one part of a whole. I get that. But the Midgar section kind of just came and went in the original one. This one is on another level.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Well, because you went through a lot more in Final Fantasy VII Remake in the city of Midgar itself. It didn't feel as... It felt like I was kind of watching from a third distance. Like I was seeing everything play out in front of me, but I wasn't actually in the city. And
You're talking the original?
the original, yes. But this one,
I disagree.
I went to the Night City. I mean, fucking...
That Night City is fucking great.
Forgetting the name. I forgot the name.
What?
I forgot the name of the actual place. Market?
Market.
Town. I'm stupid.
Night Market?
Night Market. I'm going to say
that
Night
it?
Market. I'm right. That's how I thought first of all, and I'm right because I love the game so much, and I can't be wrong about the game ever.
Yeah, you've never touched that New Game Plus, and I am several hours in.
Anyway, one of the things that I love about this game is that it does something very ballsy, which is redefine what a remake is. Remakes,
Yes, I'm gonna jump in right here. No spoilers.
no spoilers. Yes,
Yeah.
At the end, it does flip everything on its head, and I understand. Very divisive. A friend that
I can understand why a fan would be upset with the choices they made.
and perfectly agreeable. But for me, it opens up so much potential that even with how much I love about the game, such as the combat we talked about before, how I like the characters so much, partly because that nostalgia still creeps in there. It's hard to separate, like you said earlier. But what it has to offer in the future brings me, at this point, nothing but excitement. I sat on it, and that's kind of the point that players decide whether they're really excited for it or very fearful of it, or a mixture of the two. But I can say for certain, I'm just ecstatic to see where the game goes forward, whether it's good or bad. I want to see the execution of the Final Fantasy VII brand going further.
I think I'm somewhere in the middle.
You seem to be in the middle from your
somewhere
talking
in
of the differences they have with the game.
They could make, yeah.
But that being said, you touched on a lot of the good aspects of it.
But I will say, not being a super fan of the original, I enjoy the original a lot, and I'm actually going to replay the original in hype for part 2. Mm-hmm. I think no matter where that story goes, I'll be able to see the two as two separate entities. So I should be able to enjoy both.
Which is what other people haven't been able to, and I think that really matters with how you feel about this change that they do.
Yeah, if they did something like this to Metal Gear Solid,
yeah,
because of my nostalgia for that franchise, I don't know if I could do it.
Right. But that
how great is that combat?
I love it. What?
How great is that combat?
Oh, it's so good.
Right?
It's one of my favorite of all time. Easy.
It's
just
really
real good. Yeah.
Really freaking good.
Music, by the way, fulfilled everything I needed to have.
Oh my god.
Yes.
The music in that game is incredible. That's my favorite version of One Winged Angel.
Yes.
Oh.
You just spoiled something.
Who cares?
It's been a while. So I think it's
Motherfuckers know. He's in the
right.
fucking trailers.
A lot of people who want to play Final Fantasy VII Remake know that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I have to mention is how much I love this game. And I have to
I'll
admit...
say,
I have to admit...
That's not a spoiler, because if you know what One Winged Angel is, you've played the game already.
That's true. Yeah, okay, maybe you're right, yeah. But the thing is that when I first played the game, when I put it in at 11 o'clock, after I pre-ordered it, which of course I did, I got off the train at the very beginning of the game, when Cloud does that, iconic jump, and I paused the game after the fact, and I laughed like a little girl. I won't lie.
A laugh?
I giggled. No, I giggled like a little girl.
Oh,
I was like,
giggled.
I won't lie, I did. And if that doesn't exemplify my love for the game, I can't really say anything beyond that.
Final Fantasy VII Remake is a great game. Let's
Very.
hope they finish strong.
I hope they do. Obviously, excited, but there's obviously areas you can go
I'm excited to see what it means, what all these choices that they've made means. So, Connor, those are each of our individual top 10 PS4 games. Mm-hmm. I've done the numbers, and
done the math.
We've done the math.
Mm-hmm. And now it's time for the definitive list. Keep in mind, he kept this for me.
I've kept most of this list
for some reason.
I needed your help. We took a pause, and I needed your help with number 9 and number 10 because it was a tie. Mm-hmm. There was another tie on the list, but because one game appeared on both of our lists, I gave that one the edge.
Yes.
This tie between 9 and 10, neither game was on both of our lists, so we flipped a coin. Mm-hmm. And number 10, losing the coin flip.
Yes.
With a tie of 6 points, is Nier Automata. Mm-hmm. Number 9, also 6 points, The Last of Us Part 2. Number 8 with 7 points is Dark Souls 3.
Oh.
Number 7 with 8 points is Persona 5 Royal.
Also 5.
Shut up. And number 6 with 9 points is Bloodborne. With number 5 with 10 points, but only appearing on my list, is Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4 with 10 points, but appearing on both lists, is The Witcher 3. Number 3 at 11 points is Uncharted 4. Number 2 with 12 points, Connor, is Final Fantasy VII Remake.
I live with that. I would live with that.
And number 1 with the biggest gap in points at 16 is God of War.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Deserving, I think.
I am mostly happy with this list.
You did say that I have more representation, which, damn, I do.
It feels like it, doesn't
No,
it?
no, that doesn't feel like it. I just do.
So,
You see, Tavin,
I think the only game on here that is only on my list is Spider-Man. Oh, and Last of Us. So I have 2 games that are solely on my list, whereas you have 1, 2, 3. Oh, you have 3 games that are solely on your list.
Okay.
But in the top 10, that means a lot.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And a lot of the ones that I feel like I had higher, which is why they kind of got put on that list, maybe. I can't see the numbers.
You dominate actually the bottom half.
Oh, okay. Huh.
I mean, but the top half goes between the 2 of us.
Yeah, right. Makes sense.
Yeah. But I have the only game that's only on my list that is the, let me rephrase that.
2.
The game with the highest amount of points that is only on one list is my game at number 5 with Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then from there, you're just all over the place because you have so many high-ranking games that are only on your list.
Yeah. Right.
And then the top 3 switch between high on your list, low on my list, or God of War, which is high on both of our lists. Because you also had God of War 3.
Yes,
yeah,
I
we
did.
both had God of War 3.
Very high.
So there you go.
There we go.
Your top 10 list. Let me go ahead and ring it off one more time, nice and clean. From number 10 up, Nier Automata, Last of Us 2, Dark Souls 3, Persona 5, Bloodborne, Spider-Man, Witcher 3, Uncharted 4, Final Fantasy VII Remake, and number 1, the game you should absolutely play, God of War.
God of War. Play it, please. You would be doing yourself a great service.
Great service. So, Connor, that is the Two Pennies Gamecast, Episode 8.
Top 10 edition.
Top 10 edition. We're going to have more of these in the future, definitely.
Yeah. This was fun to do.
This was a lot of fun. I had a blast doing this, Connor. It took us almost 2 hours to do it, but
at least it was more
it's
interesting
hard.
than other
Kicked
things.
back. We're going to go play some Terminator Salvation. I'm going to want to kill myself while we
I'm
play.
going to want to have fun, and we will have fun. Because
boy.
F-U-N spells fun.
Anyways, until then, have a great week, guys.